Hey there, and welcome to this beginner tutorial in which I will teach you how to make a mixer in Resolume Wire. In this video we are making this Fractal Noise Mixer together, but the main focus will be on how to make mixer patches in general. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's start by talking about what a mixer is. A mixer is a patch that is set to the mixer category in the patch panel. A patch that is set up like this will be recognized as a blend mode by Resolume Arena and Avenue. Once you finish your patch, you could use it for transitions like I'm doing here, or use it as a blend mode between layers as I am doing here. Blend modes can also be used to change the way effects are applied, as each effect has its own blend mode. So that's what a mixer is. Now let's jump into Wire and make one. Every mixer patch should have two texture in nodes and a single texture out node. The first texture in node is where the video signal enters the process. We'll call this the dry signal. The second texture in node is the wet signal, the texture that we are blending or mixing into. The texture out node is where the mixed signal is sent out. The texture in node has a couple of test images that we can use for testing. For this project, I'll use the test card for the dry signal and the wire logo for the wet signal. Now we need something to blend the wet and dry signals together. For this, I will use a video mixer. Let's save this, make sure the category is set to mixer, and now we can open up Arena and use it as a blend mode for our transition. I will set the transition time of the layer to 2 seconds. Let's see what happens. We are blending between two clips, but the wet signal appears directly. This is because in our patch there are no parameters that time could affect. Let's hop back into Wire and set that straight. By default, the transition time or the opacity slider in Arena will control the first viable parameter that is set in the dashboard. That is a very technical way of saying put the importance slider at the top. As an example, I will expose the opacity of layer 2 and rename it to Blend. Let's hit save and check what has changed in Arena. We have essentially recreated the default alpha blend mode. As you can see, this works both as a transition and as a layer blend mode. Conceptually, it is important to understand that everything that we do in our patch that we want to be controlled by the transition time or opacity should be related to our main blend parameter. Additionally, the blend parameter should be normalized to a 0 to 1 range. Calling it blend is not required. Arena's opacity and transition time values will control the first float-in node they find in the dashboard, so make sure it is on top if there are multiple float inputs in your patch. And now that we are mentioning multiple inputs, you should know that it's perfectly fine to add additional parameters to your blend mode that are not affected by the time or the opacity. That is really up to you. As an example, here we have the picture-in-picture mixer, which is a wire patch on itself. The blend mode has multiple parameters that are not affected by the time or the opacity, because in this case that would make little sense. Now that we have a firm understanding of how mixers work, we can build one from scratch. In this part we're going to build the Fractal Noise Mixer from the intro of this video. To get started, I will set up the basic infrastructure of our mixer: 2 texture nodes, a blend slider, a video mixer and a texture out. I will also go ahead in naming the patch, setting the category and saving. The basic concept of the patch is that we use fractal noise to mask the wet signal and use the inverted mask to mask the dry signal. Let's work on our mask first by introducing the fractal noise node. This node generates noise patterns based on a ton of different settings and algorithms. Best practice here is really just playing with the node until you find the look that you're going for. For me, I'll keep the algorithm to value noise, set the modifier to absolute and adjust the density to 2. The phase offset parameter is how we animate the noise. It can be moved over the X and Y axis. But I am more interested in the Z input, which seemingly animates the texture. To animate the fractal noise, I will add a saw oscillator with an amplitude of about 10 and a very low frequency. I'll plug this into a float 3 node and now we have animated noise. Next, I'll add a threshold effect. This will be my main blend between full black, full white, and the animated noise in between. This is also where we patch our blend slider in. Now I can add the mask nodes and patch everything up. Make sure to flag the mask of the dry signal as inverted. We can now start playing with the blend mode, and it seems to be working fine. As a final test, I'll match the test images on both texture in nodes and stop the animation. We can clearly see the paper cutout concept in action here, and the final output is actually the original input, as we are perfectly pasting in our masks. Let's repatch everything, save, and jump over to Arena for our final test. That is looking pretty neat. Note that you can apply effects to the threshold texture. Here is a blend with some blur applied. And here is another variation with mirror quad applied. Pretty cool, and I'll leave it up to you to come up with even more crazy variations. Feel free to drop any questions you have in the comments below and check out our other tutorials to learn more about Resolume Wire. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the future.